Hey everyone, welcome to our Q&A, which happens every Tuesday at 8 p.m. And today is Tuesday and it's 8 p.m. So I'm doing the Q&A. And I'm Jennifer. For those who might not know or who might not know me yet, I host the show. I'm a counseling psychologist and I'm an author. And you can buy my book. That's a self-plug. So today I'm addressing something that came up from a post that I made a few weeks ago. So a few weeks ago, I made a post. I asked therapists across different platforms on social media, and I asked mental health professionals what are some self-sabotaging behaviors that they have seen in other therapists or even in themselves that make it hard for them to succeed when it comes to work in life. And I got many responses from that question, and I compiled the responses. I put them together in one post, which is somewhere on our timeline on this profile, the Safe Space Arena profile, and you can have a look and see some of the responses that I put together. So when I put together those responses, there were 14 of them, and out of those 14, someone asked that I can expound on 3 points that stood out for them. So that's what I'll be addressing in this video. I'll be addressing those 3 points that were requested by one of you guys. And yeah, let's get into it. So the 3 points are the point number 5, which was about lack of healthy boundaries. I have my sticky notes here, that's where I'm reading. The other point was point number 13 about clinicians putting opinions instead of observations in their clinical documentation. And the number 14 one was over disclosure. So I will be addressing number 5 and number 14 together, which is lack of healthy boundaries and over disclosure, because I feel like they are connected in a way, and I'm going to expound on how they are connected. And then I will speak about the opinion versus observation stuff in clinical documentation. So if you don't know what self-sabotaging behavior is, self-sabotaging behavior is when you do things or don't do things that would contribute to your success. So for example, if you know that getting up early is going to contribute to your success in getting to work on time, and you wake up late so that you can rush and get to work late, maybe the intention is not to get to work late, but you are getting to work late. So in essence, you are sabotaging your success of getting to work in time. And that would be an example of doing something that would threaten your success. Another form of self-sabotage is not doing things that would contribute to your success. So one is doing things that actively take away from your success, and the other one is not doing things that would contribute to your success. So think about those two things when you're thinking about self-sabotage, and it will make it easier for you to understand what self-sabotage is. Otherwise, you can always Google and get more examples in that. And because I want to keep this video short and sweet, I'm going to get straight into addressing number 5, 13, and 14. So number 5, lack of healthy boundaries, which I've said I'm gonna discuss hand in hand with number 14, which is over disclosure. So there are three types of boundaries, and the first types of boundaries are called rigid boundaries, and there are a second type of boundaries that are called porous boundaries, and then there is a third type of boundaries that is called healthy boundaries. You want to be operating on number 3, the healthy boundaries. As an individual, as a therapist, as whoever you are, as long as you are a human being, you want to be operating somewhere within the healthy boundaries spectrum. So what rigid boundaries, of course, as you can hear from the name, are boundaries that are rigid, immovable. You are stuck on them. So for example, I'll give a very common example that I hear people say. There are some people who say that for them, they don't trust people easily. So they don't trust people because they don't trust people easily. It's very hard for them to form deep friendships with other people. So maybe they have gone through something that was very difficult in their past that caused them to become very rigid in their in their experience with trust over other people. So for them, they can go outright and say, I don't trust people. And for them, that does not seem like a weird thing to say, because that's who they are, that's where they operate, that is their reality. These people are people who are going to be like, I don't trust people, people are wicked, people are cruel, the world is a very dark place. There are people who are going to say nobody can be trusted, in essence. And for them, that is how they operate. They are stuck on that place. They are not willing to exercise anything that could potentially change their mind about whether people are wicked or not. So for them, People are wicked, the world is wicked, you cannot trust anybody. That is a rigid boundary. That is the first and foremost example of a rigid boundary. People who cannot trust others, and they actively go ahead and be like, no, I'm not going to trust people because people are wicked, or they're not good and nobody can be trusted. An example of a porous boundary would be people who are very I think not even very, but too trusting. People who are now on the other end of that spectrum of the trust thing. So for them, they trust people very easily. They are very open to taking things at face value. They're very open to just trusting and trusting and trusting, even when they've been hurt before, even when they have been offended, even when they've been treated badly. They are willing, they don't think about setting any boundary that would protect themselves and their hearts in any way. For them, it's, I trust people, people are nice, there's nothing wrong with the world, I can trust anybody and everybody is trustworthy. So of course that is as you can imagine, that operates on a very serious level of naivety. Of course, we all know that not everybody is a good person, and it's not even, no, actually, let me rephrase that. We all know that people are good and bad. Nobody is 100% of anything, but it would be very naive of you to go around thinking that everybody has your best intentions at heart. So for example, if you're walking down a very dark street, you have to be careful. You have to protect yourself. You have to have your senses on alert so that you can be aware of your surroundings and you can protect yourself if anything happens. We are not saying that people who are walking down the street are going to be wicked people who are going to hurt you, but there's a potential that you could get hurt in such a situation. So you being protective of yourself does not make you a bad person. It just makes you a person who is aware and somebody who is experienced with life. So a naive person or somebody with porous boundaries would be somebody who is not willing to protect themselves like that. People who do not find it easy to set up boundaries for themselves to protect themselves and their hearts. There are people who are on this end of the spectrum where they are open and trusting everybody, while people with rigid boundaries are on the other spectrum where they are closed off and they cannot trust anybody, and for them the world is wicked and dark and trust no one. You are on your own and they can never ever trust anybody. So what would a healthy boundary look like in that situation? A healthy boundary in that situation would look like being aware that there's a middle ground. That yes, you can be open to trusting people, but don't be too open to trusting everybody, because not everybody has earned that kind of trust from you. So a healthy boundary requires you to come to the middle of that spectrum, to realize that there are people who can do wicked things, there are people who can hurt you. The world can be dark in some places, in some instances, in some circumstances, but also that the world can be a beautiful place, and that people can be beautiful people, and that people can be worthy of trust. So that is where healthy boundaries come in. You are in the middle, and then you're able to protect yourself when you're willing to enforce boundaries that protect you. And it's not closing people off, and it is also not letting everybody in. It is being able to put that boundary in the middle and be like, I will screen people, and I will screen the people that I trust. I will screen the situations that I am in to make sure that I am protected at all costs, right? So that's what a healthy boundary would look like, in the sense that you know when to say no, we know when to protect yourself. So there are other, of course, different types of boundaries. There are other examples I could give. Rigid boundaries are people who don't ask for help. They're like, I cannot ask for help. Nobody is ever going to help me. I am alone. Those are people who are very stuck on that end of the spectrum. I am alone and I am fighting this battle by myself. People who have porous boundaries are people who are willing to who are not willing to say no to situations. You will ask them to do things for you, or you will ask them to help you do things, and even when they know they cannot do those things fully because of maybe other commitments, or they're not physically able to help you, they will still go ahead and try to convince themselves that they can help you, and they think that saying no is being a bad person, or it's a bad thing to say no. So that is somebody with very porous boundaries. Healthy boundaries are people who are able to hold themselves up, and they're able to stand up for themselves. They're able to speak up when they feel offended, when they feel they're being hurt, they're being taken advantage of. These are people who are able to speak up, and they're people who are willing to enforce their boundaries when they are in difficult situations. So when it comes to therapy, as a therapist, the lack of healthy boundaries in your workplace, and even with your clients, with colleagues, that can be destructive. That can be a self-sabotaging behavior in your therapy, with your clients, and with your colleagues, and with your family members. In the sense that if, as a therapist, for example, a client comes to session very late, they've left you hanging for the last 30 minutes when your session should have started, and you don't address that in session because you're afraid of offending the client, or you're afraid the client, if you tell the client that they should not have gotten to come to therapy late, or they stepped on a boundary that you had erected, that you had said when sessions should start, you guys communicated, and somehow they do not have a valid explanation for why they could be late for 30 minutes, they don't communicate and all that stuff. If you don't bring it up, you're essentially allowing the client to step on your boundaries that eventually you're going to start feeling resentful towards this client. You're going to be like, this client does not respect me and they don't respect my time. But because you're afraid of telling them, because you're afraid of seeming like you're not a nice person, you want to please the client, then the client will not know there's a problem because you're not saying anything. For them, they'll go on assuming that everything is okay because you didn't raise an issue. And so eventually you become resentful to your client. You realize that you're not serving your client, and when you hear the coming session, you're bored, you don't want to see them. That would be a problem. That would be a boundary problem. If your boundary is, if you have healthy boundaries, you will be able to speak up when your boundaries are being stepped on. If you know how to set healthy boundaries, you'll be able to speak up for yourself, and you'll be able to advocate for yourself at all times. That is, in essence, having healthy boundaries. Having unhealthy boundaries, maybe very loose boundaries, very porous boundaries with clients, would be now things like that. Client coming in late, you don't comment, you don't bring it up. Clients not paying you, and you know very well, you both know that they're supposed to pay for the sessions. Clients not doing things that you guys agreed together in sessions or outside of sessions. Basically, anything that goes against things that you guys have agreed on, or them intruding on your privacy when you have clearly communicated that you do not desire that. So, for example, a client, if for example you're not the emergency contact for your client, and they know who they're supposed to call if there's an emergency, a porous boundary or an unhealthy boundary would be when you let that client call you even in the middle of the night, and you guys have already communicated well what the channels of communication should be like. That would be an example. It could be just those things of communication, where not communicating unless there's like a really good reason. Of course, these things vary. You don't say that this is X, it works like this, and I'm not gonna change. That's not how it works. Sometimes these things vary depending on circumstances. You might find there's a situation that happens where your client really has to call you, and just because there's a boundary set there does not mean that now the client is being willingly somebody who is just breaking your boundaries nilly-willy. So think about it that way. When it comes to your colleagues at the workplace, if you have unhealthy boundaries or very porous boundaries or very rigid boundaries, people can find it very hard to approach you. People can find it very hard to engage with you because you are closed off completely. Your boundaries are too rigid. If they are too loose, then people will take advantage of you. People treat you like a joke because you treat your boundaries like a joke. If you don't take yourself seriously, people will not take you seriously. That's just how it goes. So be conscious of your own boundaries and what healthy boundaries look like for you in different situations. And it's not just about communicating your boundaries, it's also about enforcing the consequences of those boundaries. If you don't enforce the consequences of the boundaries you've set, people are going to assume that the boundaries were just how would I put them? People are going to assume that your boundaries were just statements that you made in passing. But if you enforce the consequences of those boundaries, then people are going to take those boundaries seriously. And that applies to you as well. When people set boundaries with you, it is your job to respect those boundaries. And it's not your job to start now convincing them, otherwise telling them they should change their boundaries for you. They should give you a pass. That is not how boundaries work. So think about it that way. Talking about over-disclosure, I said I was going to combine that with the lack of boundaries. So over-disclosure in therapy, of course, is when a therapist thinks that the client is their friend. You tell your client everything about your life, and you know very well that that has no therapeutic purpose in therapy. So think about it this way. When we talk about disclosure in therapy, a therapist has to disclose themselves to a degree. You can't be closed off completely where your client knows nothing about you. But then there's a rule of thumb. You're supposed to disclose yourself when your disclosure is going to help therapy move forward. So if the disclosure that you do serves no purpose in helping the client's therapy move forward, then that disclosure is pointless and you're just overindulging, and that is just serving your ego. Yeah. So as a therapist, when you are disclosing yourself, do not think of your client as your friend. Your client is not your friend. They have never been, they never will be. And if they are, then there's a boundary problem in therapy and it can become unethical. Think of your client as somebody who is there for your services. And if you have anything you want to share with your friends, go share it with your friends. Don't share it with your clients. Your clients are not your friends. They have never been, they never will be. Over disclosure is you telling your clients about the things that are going on in your life. If you're stressed, you tell your client all the stresses that are going on. Last weekend I went here, I got wasted, we drank so much, and then we came back, and then X, Y, and Z happened. You will not believe what kind of a weekend I had. It was crazy, nini. Those are not things you're supposed to be telling your client. They serve no purpose in helping your clients mental health. They serve no purpose in moving forward your client's therapy. So why would you be telling your client about the time you went out and got wasted? Unless there's a really a good reason why that would serve the client. So again, go back to the rule of thumb. When you're disclosing yourself to your client, always have at the back of your mind the distinction that this disclosure I am about to give to my client, this opening I'm about to give to my client, this personal piece of information I am about to give to my client is going to help the client's therapy move forward. If it is not going to do any of those things, then you should probably not be talking about it. That is how I think about disclosure. And in case you have any addition to that, put it in the comment section. Let us learn from you. Over disclosure, of course, can cause you to treat your clients as if it should start using your client's session as your own therapy, because now you guys are going to start exchanging stories. So your client tells you, oh my gosh, I am so stressed, I don't have money, and you're like, what? Me too, guy, same. Aki, even me, I'm suffering, sina pesa. Why are you telling your clients such things? That is not information that your client needs for any purpose. It does not move your client's therapy forward. So why would you be telling your client about how broke you are? I don't see in anywhere where that works in any way, because come on, think about it. But in case I am wrong here, it will correct me. Remember, I'm not an expert in everything, and again, as I said, these things that we do here are not mental health. These things we do here are not therapy sessions. So this is just a discussion. I am open to hearing your opinion. Again, if it's not moving your client's service sessions forward, do not disclose. Keep it to yourself. Go disclose it to your therapist. Go disclose it to your friends. Go disclose it to your spouse. Go disclose it to other people who are in your life, but not your client. Your client is there for your services. End of story. That's how I would look at it. Last but definitely not least, I'm going to talk about the opinion versus observation thing in clinical documentation. So this is a bit complicated in many ways, because this will probably come in when there's somebody else who is overseeing your work, and let's say you've been let's say you're writing a case note for your clients, and this case note will be seen by maybe a psychiatrist or somebody else who is going to be providing care to the client. It is not your place to start giving your own personal opinions about the client. You're supposed to give factual information about the client. So how the client presented themselves when they came to therapy, how they were looking, how they were responding, how they were behaving, how they were feeling according to their subjective experience. Those are the things you're supposed to put in your clinical documentation. That's not the place to start saying the client was talking with alikuwa anaongea sheng mob, the client was shrubbing, unless that shrubbing has anything to do with their mental state. I don't see where you need to document about your client shrubbing. Your personal issues, your personal opinions of the client, that is not where your clinical documentation is not the place where you're supposed to be putting your personal opinions of the client. Because remember, at the end of the day, as we say in therapy, yes, as a therapist, you're providing services, but at the end of the day, it's not about you. And keep your personal opinions to yourself unless there's a way that they serve in making therapy for the client better. At the end of the day, your personal opinions are formed from your own judgments and your own biases. So I don't see how you need to put those in clinical documentation. Yes, you can give suggestions about how you think the client will benefit from X, Y, and Z procedure or the next thing that they will get from the next service provider, but that is not the place to put your personal opinion. You can give clinical recommendations, you can give clinical points of views in your documentation, and then you can give the observation that you saw in the client, not your personal objective opinion, not your personal subjective opinion. There is no room for that in clinical documentation. And that is how I would look at it. I don't see anywhere where your personal opinion is required for helping the client move forward. Of course, this has nothing to do with the time that you are trying to understand your client, you're trying to implement an intervention. Of course, you're a human being and you're going to have your own judgments towards people and your clients, of course, because you're a human being. But then in your training, you've been trained to think about your clients and see them objectively, to offer unconditional positive regards to your client. That is the work we've been trained to do. That is not the place to bring your personal opinions. Again, I insist, unless there's a reason your personal opinion would move forward the clinical the treatment of the client, would move forward the therapy for the client, I don't see room where you're supposed to be putting your personal opinions. I could be wrong. Again, as I keep saying, this is just my opinion, and from what I have seen with my clients, when I write any clinical documentation, I rarely put my personal opinion unless it is specifically requested that I put my personal opinion, and that is a very rare occasion. Ordinarily, put objective information, put observations that you've seen on the client. You can talk about the subjective experiences the client has brought in, and yeah, that is how I would look at that, and yeah, that's how I would look at it. So with those few points, I will end this live. Thank you for asking me to clarify these points. And as I said, if you have anything that you want to add to this, something that may have left out, anything you want clarified more, especially when it comes to the boundaries thing, if you have any of those things at the back of your mind, you can leave them in the comment section and I will respond to them as soon as possible, 48 hours or less. That is usually the response time that I have. So yeah, if you have anything, let me know. Send it through. My email is always open. You can find all the information on the contact page of our website and other resources over there. And you can share this with a friend. If you're a therapist, you can share this with other therapists in your circle. If you are a student in counseling, you can share this with other classmates in your counseling program. And yeah, let's help each other become better clinicians, and let's help each other become better people and better humans. So yeah, thank you very much for coming through. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next time in the next live, which should be next week on Tuesday. And we'll be answering more questions about mental health, about life, about psychology, and everything in between. So see you and take care of yourselves. Asanteni sana.